Chris Griffin. We're going to talk a little bit about a new running back that's jumped on the scene for OU's recruiting class in 2027. And then we're going to talk a little bit about donations in the SEC and are some SEC teams in finance trouble. Then finally, Chris and I are going to do a little bit of a scheduled draft thing where we're going to choose our top 4 non-OU games that we would love to attend this year. So all that and more on Recruit Intel.
What's up, everybody? We're here with another edition. This time, we're just going to do another recruiting intel pod, and we'll talk about some other topics, kind of some national-like topics, if you will. Our friend Jason, he's out right now, but as you can see, we got all 3 channels right there in the middle. You got the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast with Jason, you got the Horns Down Podcast with myself, and you got Chris Mason, Students 360. So definitely go and subscribe to all 3 channels. Like this video, like the other videos, and we will go from there. Chris Mason, we've got a few topics to talk about, but first, let's knock out some recruiting.
Yeah. So OU offered a little bit of a surprise. OU offered a 2027 running back from Brenham, Texas, named Jacoby Dixon. This wasn't a guy I had on our radar, not a name that really had been anywhere where Sooner fans were kind of thinking about it. I can't find any footage for him last year, Chris. I think he was hurt. I think he was banged up, only played a couple of games. But the previous year, when he was a sophomore, he rolled up. He had I think he had over 2,000 yards and 34 touchdowns. So he had a big season. He was actually, OU was inviting him to games. He came to the Michigan game. So he's been on the radar for a little bit for a time, and then Coach McCullough went down to visit him. They just had their spring game, or just wrapped up their spring practice, and apparently saw him in person. And he's a much bigger kid. His stats when he was from 2 years ago, they said he was like 5'9", 190 pounds. Well, he's now 5'10", maybe 5'11", and looks like he's about 210 pounds. He looks bigger. So from that perspective, he's just a bigger kid. He just looks bigger. So OU offered him, and in an interview he gave to Sam Spiegelman, who's kind of their Texas Southwest kind of guy, he was pretty clear that OU had offered him and surged to the top of his recruiting list. So to the point that Sam Spiegelman put in a crystal ball forecast, whatever you want to call it, for Dixon to choose OU. So it's a little bit of a surprise. This sort of, I don't know what this means for OU recruiting to T.J. Lewis from Bolingbrook, from Illinois, who we've talked about before and featured on the I think Recruit Intel on Monday. We featured him on Monday, and I'm guessing an official visit is about to be scheduled. And this guy looks like he's going to be the second running back in the class.
Interesting. Are you? I guess with what film that you have seen on the kid, do you think that is there a big difference, or are you still wanting to go the TJ Lewis route, or I mean, just kind of what are the comparisons? What are the where's the contrast, and then just kind of how do you see it down the line?
Well, there's a couple of plays from his spring game that just occurred, I think, last week on Huddle, and you can see he's physically bigger. He looks taller. He's bulked up, and he looks really good. he looks like a really good back. So his footage from 2 years ago, when he was a sophomore, is excellent. He's kind of more of a speed back, but just excellent, just racking up yards, big play after big play. So obviously, I think Dalen McCullough got a chance to watch this kid, and it was enough for him to go from we're kind of I'm interested in him to offering him on the spot, and knowing, I think maybe tipped off that, look, if you offer this kid, you might get a verbal commitment 5 minutes later. So this will be something to watch. We'll track this, obviously. If he verbals to OU, Chris, we'll start tracking this on Recruit Intel on Mondays, and maybe we'll bring some early game video from Huddle over to just see how he looks. But it's hard to second guess Dalen McCullough with his track record. But I'm a little surprised. Yeah, obviously Dalen McCullough saw something at Brenham's practice that he was at, because the photo of him is he's in his uniform next to Dalen McCullough. So it was like he was offered him at practice. So obviously McCullough just saw something at practice that told him, I have to offer this guy and offer this guy right now. So we'll see how this shakes out. But this is because there was nothing indicating that OU was tracking this guy, or he didn't visit for spring. He didn't come up for spring football. As near as I can tell, I can't find any evidence of that. So this is looking like kind of an old school, McCullough at Brenham's practice got tipped off by, obviously OU got tipped off by some coaches in Texas, said, hey, he's now healthy. He's a bigger back. Come down and look at this guy. And it sounds like McCullough, exercising, the coaches still have a big say in recruiting. Exercising that option to just see a kid and just pull the trigger. So it's a little surprising in terms of the way OU's been working lately. But, McCullough must have just said, hey, man, I just watched this kid Dixon, and he looks absolutely awesome. So, but again, this was only tipped off by this, Sam Spielman got tipped off by somebody, and then this kid went public on Twitter. Otherwise, I don't think we really would have known any of this.
All right. Well, Nate, I know that you're going to watch this video at some point. So when you get in the comments, we will have some footage for you. Have some film on this kid on Monday.
Yep.
Monday's pod. So definitely check us out. Again, we do a weekly pod once a week together. Where's our weekly recruiting pod at 8 p.m. Central Time every Monday. So definitely check it out. So we'll have film of this kid. I'm excited about the prospects of it. I'm buying in. I want to give my trust all the way, but I'm buying into the Dalen McCullough experience thus far. I like the direction we're going with our backs as far as bigger backs, those bruisers, those guys right there. And I think that he has an eye for talent. So I'm going to trust that, right? I think that, again, we've talked about it ad nauseum with some of the coaches that they brought in. No matter kind of what level they're at, that kind of really goes towards Witten, right? First year coaching at this level here, but those guys know what it looks like. Whether it's on the field or off the field, they know what it looks like to get it done at a very high level. So I think I trust the staff with what they're brewing over there. So definitely could be a big pickup, and I guess we'll just see what's going on. It's definitely a pivot, right? I know there's still people are probably still bummed out about the Rhodes kid, but again, that's the 28 kid that you can potentially circle back to if that road is not, all the way a dead end. Regardless, though, I think the biggest thing is just that, I think you should be excited about the type of back, the stockier, taller, bigger, faster, whatever you want to say, the bruisers, kind of have that SEC build that you can mold into something else. So, Chris Mason, what else we got on here?
Well, just to your point about running backs, OU has offered two 2028 bigger backs this week. They offered Kevin Hartsfield from Georgia, who's 6 foot, 205 pounds, And they just offered a California running back who, let me get his name here before I butcher it. Malachi Davis from California, and Chris, he's saying he's 6'1", 216 with a 4.4.
Oh wow!
So that might be somebody's film we see on Monday. I need to go look at it. It'll definitely be Mally Davis and Kevin Hartsfield are probably going to be a subject of a daily recruiting update sometime next week, where I take a look at their footage and talk about these two big backs.
All right. What's next, Chris Mason?
Well, the next thing, do you have the image I sent to our private chat about donations?
No, go ahead and talk about it. I'll get it queued up.
Okay, so it went public this week that for, I believe, calendar year 2024 through 2025, because obviously this date is obviously falling a little bit behind, that the donations for the SEC teams broke down in kind of an interesting way in terms of the top. They only showed the top 10. And from that perspective, it was Texas 1, it was Tennessee 2, then it was Oklahoma 3. And then there was a serious drop-off after that in terms of the gap between Texas and everybody else. This isn't new news to any Oklahoma fan. We've seen these numbers before when we were in the Big 12. There was Texas, Oklahoma, and then a chasm between the rest of the programs in the Big 12. But you're seeing that even in the SEC, there's a gap, big gap between Texas, the next group being Tennessee, and after that, there's a pretty big gap between Oklahoma, Alabama, LSU, Mississippi State, Auburn, Georgia, A&M. A&M's number is kind of shocking. And then Florida.
It's not, Chris Mason. They were talking about it for the longest. If anybody was really paying attention, past players, Evan Stewart and all of them were coming out saying it's like signing a 360 deal if you're a music artist, right? It's like the money. It sounds good. It is good, but Jimbo wasn't good as far as paying it off, Plus, a lot of those kids didn't even really, necessarily pan out to really get to that point. So it's kind of a yin yang effect, wouldn't you think, with A&M as far as it being I'm sorry to stop you, but just that's interesting because you would think that they have a lot of money. We know that they have money. They have blood money and oil money, right? But I think it's kind of a mix of probably, be honest with you, I think it's just kind of, don't get me wrong, Elko has exceeded expectations in my mind. I think that he has stabilized that program and got it to where it's a I wouldn't say a powerhouse, but it's relevant again. It's relevant in all the right ways, right? Not like a Jimbo where it's just really gaudy, right? But I think it's a mix of just really buy-in and just belief in this program overall. I think it's just one of those things where it kind of shows the light, or at least on paper shows where I think boosters and all the rest of them are really at with, as far as like, I'm not going to donate anything unless I just really see something on the field that changes my mind. Last year was a great year, but you got to go and do it again, right? And just the way that you ended that season last year, that was the problem. But this year it'd be different, For everybody saying that we have a tough schedule, I still say, yes, it's tough looking at down deep into our schedule. We got to go to Gainesville and then at some point have Texas A&M come here. So those are going to be tough games. I know they will be, but shit, Chris Mason, Texas A&M didn't play anybody outside of Texas. And when they played Texas last year, they got exposed. So it's one of those things where you're like, what if we had that schedule? What if Texas had that schedule? What do they look like?
No, I agree with you, and that was a big part of our power rankings. SEC power rankings was, we were like, they had an easy schedule last year. They had loaded, their offense was loaded with NFL prospects, including a veteran offensive line. They're having to replace all of that talent. How much better can Marcel Reed be? And they've got a tougher schedule. They're actually going to play better games against better. They've got a instead of a 2 game schedule, they've got like a 4 or 5 game schedule. So, yeah, I'm with you. I it's just interesting. I mean, because Chris, you had a chance. I'm not sure if you had a chance to read George Stoya's article about the OU front office, and if you didn't, it's on Sooner Scoop. It's a great article.
I skimmed some of it after you had tweeted it out.
Yeah, it's a good article. But the interesting thing is, Stoya mentioned on their podcast that one of the teams that is having a problem paying their NIL budget seems to be Ole Miss. And for the longest, and you don't see Ole Miss on this list. You don't see Vandy on this list. You don't see Missouri. You don't see Kentucky. Those programs are obviously suffering. In terms of donations, and it just rolls. And the thing is, he said Ole Miss was having a hard time paying their NIL money, and they're making NIL payments, and agents are starting to get concerned about that. But the other thing is, Chris, and this is rumor mongering, so we'll just call it that. So the story has been, Chris, is that they've been like leveraging their student activity funds, university funds to pay NIL.
Hey, Chris Mason, let me tell you something. We don't. Let's not do the investigative journalism, man.
Hey, look, that's not me. That's
Did you say allegedly?
Allegedly. That's been flying around for like a year and a half. So it's not. It's been flying around for a while that they've been robbing Peter to pay Paul. But who knows? We'll see what happens.
What's hilarious is, and you said this was Ole Miss who was doing this?
Yeah.
I don't know. And look, they got a lot of things going on right now because Lane Kiffin King Jr. right now is on his soapbox going off. I mean that's a thing of itself. But I wouldn't be surprised. Let's be real. I think there are a bunch of teams on this list right here, and I would say there's a bunch of teams that are elsewhere as well that have promised everything except for the sky. You know what I'm saying? Except for the golden roads in heaven. They've promised everything to these recruits and just haven't been able to deliver.
This is not an alleged statement. This is a financial book statement. There are a number of SEC schools that are relying upon student activity funds to keep their athletic department afloat.
I can see it.
And that's legit. That's legit. That's in their budgets. And OU's athletic department has always been post Gary Gibbs, John Blake, has always been positive. They've been revenue positive, and they've had a savings account. They've dipped into that. They've dipped into that savings account the last 2 years because they haven't had full share SEC TV money. They get that now this year.
Chris Mason, are you sure? Because Benji, I'm sorry, and Bevo's bodyguard, if you're in here, but Texas fans were telling me that we were $1 billion in debt, and I was just like, what are we talking about? I don't know. We're a poor school, right? Poverty program, as they like to call it.
I mean, if we're a poverty program, what does that make Alabama, LSU, Auburn, Georgia, A&M, and Florida?
Yeah. No, I think the buy-in. I think the buy-in when you're talking about athletic donations and stuff like that. I think that's kind of where I look at this. If all jokes aside, I think that's kind of where I'm at, Chris Mason. I think it's just a simple fact that, don't get me wrong, we're chasing 8. We're 26 years strong, chasing that 8th title, right?
Yeah.
But when you look at some of these other programs, you're saying, hey, they've had kind of less than stellar years these past years, and the Saban effect is real, I believe. I bet you that number was astronomically higher when Saban was there. You look at LSU, and you say it's just a thing of you had a generational type team that some people say is the greatest team, greatest college football team ever assembled. How Mississippi State is up there, hell if I will ever know. It has to be because of baseball. Um, Auburn is just a consistent anomaly to me. Georgia, you would think that Georgia would be higher, but I don't. That's kind of a question mark for me. But again, A&M, Florida, even going back to state, they're high, but you still look at them and you say, where's the real buy-in, right? I think they're really passionate about all their sports, but some of these teams are just chasing great moments instead of great tradition, in my opinion. If I may just be quite frank with you, outside of potentially and obviously in Alabama and LSU. Georgia, some of these other teams are just kind of chasing moments or trying to chase glory, um, with some of
Yeah.
the championships that they've won so long ago. But I mean, even on top of that, with the OU, yeah, we won a championship 26 years ago. But you look at OU and you say, but they still have a tradition of winning. They still have tradition, and not to say these other schools don't have tradition, but outside of Bama and LSU, what have you done? And Georgia, obviously, what have you done for me lately? Mississippi State, Auburn, um, and and Florida. Tennessee, again, I think when you look at the top three schools, Chris Mason, I'll pass the mic to you. I think one thing you have to really ask yourself is just these other three schools are kind of dedicated to all sports, right? I think that people are willing at Texas. Come on now, I mean, you already know that like everything is dedicated to football. They want their team to be good. But I think when you look at like some of the other sports, they want them to be equally as good too. And when they're winning championships and doing well, I think they're willing to donate. But it's Texas, they got that money. Tennessee comes in at second, which is kind of interesting to me. But again, I would liken it to Texas, to where the basketball program, football especially, and some of the other sports they have. And then with us, I think that people are willing to donate here. It's surprising that we're this high from all the stories that you've been told here and there and there and here. But kind of when you get into that 4 to 10 range, that's when it starts getting a little bit, weird, because you're just like, what? How?
Well, one thing this sort of highlights, and I've said this before in other podcasts, and folks who don't quite believe me, is that everyone's like, well, how are the Big Ten? How is the Big Ten teams sort of improving like this? And it's like, if you've lived outside the South, if I lived in Chicago for 10 years. There are Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana, Illinois grads all over the place in the Midwest, right? Their graduate programs are excellent. They have lots of alumni who have lots of professional degrees, graduate schools. Benji says they have old money. Maybe that's true, but the thing about it is OU does have good graduate programs, for better or worse. I don't want to get into a debate about his other stuff, and he was there way too long. Boren raised the academic profile of the school. He improved lots of stuff, and OU is in a better. I mean, the Gaylord School got just named the #1 media school for the second year in a row. The business school is good. If you look at these numbers, Jimmy Satterfield's asking a good question. I don't have Big Ten numbers in front of me, but I can guarantee you Ohio State's number is pretty close to Texas's. That everything you see says Ohio State's, giving is about that same kind of level. So I think it's highlighting that what I've always said is that, when NIL came into play, this is not what Alabama, Georgia, Auburn, it's not what these schools wanted. It's because they were used to cheating. I'll say it was, they were used to paying players under the table a small amount of money, and they don't have a massive amount. Don't have a massive rich alumni base. They've got some big alumni guys, and obviously Saban brought in a lot of money. But notice he got out when NIL started. That's not a surprise, because he knew Bama wasn't going to be able to sort of compete at this high NIL number. Because that's just not the way Alabama's built. Same thing for Auburn. Same thing for Georgia. Florida, I'm a little surprised the donations are not a little higher, but they've also been lost in the woods for like the last 15 years since Urban left. So that's not a big surprise really. But yeah, overall, I just thought it was, Chris, I just thought it was fascinating that if you had told anybody that OU was getting $26 more million in athletic donations than Alabama before you saw this report, they would have told you we were out of our freaking mind. Same thing for LSU, same thing for Georgia. You'd have thought Georgia was probably in the 80, 90 million range.
No, I definitely agree. I think it again, it's interesting with Bama. It kind of, if you see me on other pods, shout out to some of our friends that pod, Ty with Around the Table Sports especially. When I would talk to him about it, we would always talk about the fact that hey, when you take a deeper look at the NIL, like basically in like the legal realm, a lot of these states have kind of similar laws that they've passed to really make it flexible, relaxed, whatever adjective you want to use to describe the NIL process for each of these states, but they all kind of mirror each other in a way. So there's really no difference between kind of some of the regulations that we have here, some of the laws or whatnot that we have here around NIL and like Alabama. That's why I kind of have to go to my default, which is just is there enough buy-in, right? But they're still getting kids, so obviously something's going right. But does I guess my last question on this before we move on, Chris Mason, does this factor in any of the revenue money that they're supposedly getting?
No, this is just strictly athletic donations, and apparently the split here is that I think George Stoia said that OU's 90 of the OU's 92, like 56 is directed to football.
Okay.
So I mean, we've seen Arkansas have the embarrassment of shutting down their tennis programs and then reversing course on that recently. So they're not even listed here. So they're somewhere below the 49 million mark. I don't know where they are. So this is, and obviously, they've got Walmart and Tyson money if they need it. But this is strictly talking, this is just shows sort of how healthy your alumni base is giving to your school. What's the health of your alumni base sort of financially, if nothing else? Benji, you're right. Texas's swimming and diving has got to be using 78% of that 167. That's a lot of money to keep those pools filled. So I just thought it was fast. I mean, if you had asked, prior to seeing this, if you'd asked what the top five was going to look like, I would have said, well, Texas is number one. I would have said A&M is two. I probably would have said, maybe Georgia or Alabama's three, OU's probably four. And then I said, and then maybe Florida would be, five or six, just because Florida's, got good graduate programs as is the flagship school in the state of Florida. That's just the way that works. But yeah, when you look at these numbers, this whole, because a lot of the Oklahoma local media like to say, and there's one guy in particular, obviously, who's pitching this whole OU can't compete in NIL. OU's, doesn't have any money, who's starting, banging that Broklahoma drum, and it's just obviously not true. It's not right. I mean, this is not the case. OU's athletic department, finances are in good shape. So I think it was just a little shocking. Again, I was just shocked to see the difference between the 26 million difference, between OU and Alabama. I don't think anybody would have told you that prior to that, and that Texas is just so far ahead of all the other schools in the SEC. So we knew they were ahead of Oklahoma. We've seen that data for years, right? In the Big 12, we've been seeing this sort of data for years. It's Texas, then it's Oklahoma, and then as I said, there's a wide gap between the rest of the Big 12 teams. So it's just a little surprising. I'll try and dig up the Big 10 numbers at some point, so we could take a look at that on a future Sooner Intel and see how it compares.
If Ohio State is a number one, I'll be damned.
They are. I mean, they would be. Michigan might be, because obviously Michigan's alumni base is huge. That's the thing is, even Indiana and like Illinois are they're twice the size of Ole Miss. They just legitimately are, and they produce, and their graduate programs are much better than Ole Miss's grad programs. So, when you have a lot of it's just common sense. When you have a lot of master degrees, undergraduates, and undergraduates with master degrees, those people make more money, and if they donate to their school, you're going to get more donations. It's a simple fact of that. That's just how things work. So, and their business schools are generally ranked better than most of the business schools in the SEC. I'm not like U.S. News and World Report ranking schools. I'm just giving you my general impression of it based upon prior comments and stuff like that. So I'll try and dig up a Big Ten list and we can compare that and take a look at it.
All right. All right, Chris Mason, keep it moving. I think we're on our
All
last
right.
topic for tonight, which is the draft. Right?
Which is a scheduled draft. So there's been a couple of cool scheduled draft stuff. JD Pickell did one. Josh Pate did one. So Chris, if we're talking about you could, you have your private jet. State of Oklahoma seated you a private jet. You have every Saturday free to go to any game you want to. What 4 non-Oklahoma games would you love to watch this year?
4 non-Oklahoma games that I would love to watch this year.
You've got a jet, gets you back and forth, gets you back to your boy every night after the game is over. Money and logistics are no obstacle. What 4 games would you love to see this season? And
Okay.
since Jason's, I'll go take one first. All right. And if I choose a game, you can't choose the game. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm right off the bat. I'm going to choose because Jason is not on here. I would leave it for him, but he's not on here. I'm gonna choose to go to Miami v Notre Dame
I
in
see that.
South Bend.
Um. Okay. My first game. I got you. LSU at Ole Miss.
Are you going in riot gear, or
Uh,
are you bringing your basket with you? Are
I'm
you
dressing up
you're,
just like Mad Max would. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting ready for it because you already know it's gonna be very lively out there, boy. So yeah, now that would probably be the first game that I would go to.
Yeah, because I think you're right. I think that's a playoff eliminator game in September. I don't know the loser of that game gets into the college football playoff. Whereas the Notre Dame Miami game, that's probably a bye. That's for a bye. I'd be stunned if those two teams aren't in the playoffs. But the winner of that game, I think, gets a bye. Is one of the top four seeds.
All right, keep it going. I'm trying
All
to.
right, my next game is Indiana Ohio State.
Oh wow.
Again, I'm hard. It's hard for me to imagine that game is not with with Ohio State's schedule and the other games on their schedule. I think if Indiana loses that game, that tells us maybe a little bit where Indiana's going to be with their overall record. I just think both of those teams are going to need that win to get to the Big Ten title game and try and secure a bye. So, and I'm just fascinated to see how that rematch goes. A real regular season rematch between those guys, because obviously 2 years ago, when Indiana played them, they weren't really ready to step up to Ohio State.
I want to throw in an honorable mention.
Okay.
Oregon and Oklahoma State. I want, or yeah, I want to see. I want to see what the boys down there, the Oklahoma, North Texas, Mean Green, or whatever we're calling them now. I would like to see
Are
that.
they the mean orange or are they
Yeah,
the green boys?
I have no like that's interesting. Um, let's see. I'm looking through some stuff. Let's see. I think Oregon at Ohio State. Same weekend that you would go and see Miami versus Notre Dame, I would go and see Oregon at Ohio State.
That's a good one because if that's if Ohio State loses to Oregon and Indiana, kind of in a back to back kind of mode, I don't think they're getting to the Big Ten championship game, and they might be they're I think they're another loss away, a Michigan upset loss away from being outside the playoffs. So conversely, Oregon doesn't have that many difficult games. If they win that, they could be looking at running the table. So, all right, my third game that I'm going to go to is I'm going to go to Georgia v Alabama.
Oh, that's an easy one, Chris Mason. Come on, man.
Well, I mean, it's if we beat Georgia, that Alabama game, they have to play. Georgia has to go to Alabama, and if they lose that game, then Georgia's on the fringe as well. And I think this gives us if Georgia does to Alabama what they did last year, then I think the Kalen DeBoer heat gets considerable.
All right. Are neither of us going to are neither this guy are neither of us going to pick that Clemson LSU game, the opener?
I'm not, because I don't think it's gonna be much. I'm really down on Clemson. I don't know what they're. I mean, they lost their quarterback. They lost their NFL talent. I don't think they're going to put up much of a fight. So I'm not really interested in watching Tiger on Tiger violence in Death Valley, in the swamp of LSU in September. I just don't think it's going to be much of a game.
Let me throw out another honorable mention then. Notre Dame at BYU. Does it interest you that they're even going over there? Catholics versus the Mormons.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting game. I mean, if Notre Dame's got like a 3 game schedule, right? Unless they just gack something in some weird way, like the Northern Illinois thing 3 years ago. Yeah, it does. I mean, is it Bachmaker? Is it Bear Bachmaker? Is that right? Bauer?
Yeah,
Bauer?
yeah,
Bauer?
whatever.
Bauer?
Just go with it.
Yeah, the bear guy. If
Yeah.
he's like taking a step up at quarterback, then maybe that game's interesting, because Notre Dame won't really be tested. So maybe that game is really interesting. So I don't know.
I'll pick for my third game. I'll pick Ohio State at USC, October 31st. I would love to go see that.
Okay, all right. That's easy too. So all right. But
That may, hey, I mean, damn, USC gets Ohio State at home. I think they have to go to Indiana late in the season, which will be interesting. But they have Oregon on their schedule as well the last week in September.
Yeah,
We may have us a little separation Saturday.
week four is loaded.
Loaded, yeah, because we gotta go to Georgia. I mean, it's that'll be interesting, man.
So Texas is going to Rocky Top that day.
Yeah,
If they drop the Ohio State game, I'm not saying they will. It's in Austin. I'm pretty sure Texas will be favored. But if for some reason they drop that game and then go to Rocky Top and things are sort of falling apart, just like OU has to go to Michigan and then has to go to Georgia, both OU and Texas, the first 4 weeks it's kind of a nightmare for both teams in terms of just trying to get some momentum and get rolling. So, but. You are completely right. So here's my wild card game. All right, I'm going to go to Houston versus Texas Tech.
come on, Chris Mason, man.
One Big 12 game. Well, if Tech doesn't have Sorsby, Houston has the Kezian Henderson kid. If Tech gets knocked off in that game, they could the Big 12's not getting 2 teams in, so. You could find Tech ending up playing BYU for the Big 12 championship game, and if BYU has a pulse instead, you could see the money class of Tech maybe not getting into the playoffs.
Oh, Jesus. I'm looking at you know me, I love sun and fun. I don't like all the cold stuff. I see that second game of the season, Arizona State is paying Texas A&M a visit. This is interesting, Chris Mason. I thought they would double it back with Mississippi State, but obviously not. My goodness, that's going to be an interesting game. I have no reason to go to College Station. That does not sound fun to me. But what I would tell you,
if that was in Tempe, that'd be a party. But anyway,
Let's see. Go to that one. Let's see what their football schedule looks like. Okay. I'm gonna throw a wild card out here, Chris Mason. You're about to be mad at me, but I'm about to go deep into my bag. Okay, I mean
all right, all right, all right.
I'm looking for that last fry in the bag type of pick right now. I'm gonna go September 5th of 2026, UNLV at Hawaii.
You want to see the first game of the Jackson Arnold era?
I want to see it. I want to see it. And I'm in Hawaii. It's a win-win. It's a win-win. I can't lose, Chris Mason. I can't lose.
So you're definitely location is a big part of what you're choosing here.
Sun and fun, man. I'm only going to one cold game. I can't do cold games. I hate cold games, but I can definitely I'll go to them, but I will
So Miami Notre Dame November, not really your cup of tea.
not at Notre Dame. No, no. Unfortunately, I'd have to be in a suite, and I hate suites. I want to be out there with the action.
Okay, because you can get snow in South Bend in November.
No,
I have been at a Notre Dame Northwestern game in a blizzard, so it's entirely possible.
So when I was interning for Fox 25, they let me do a whole bunch of like practice runs, different things like that. And so that night they were like, "Hey, let's figure out like what you really want to do." And I'm kind of a hard news guy, I suppose, but I like that side of it, like actual news, hard hitting news, right? But they were like, "Hey, let's try you out at sports reporting as well." We went to a high school football game here, I think, at Norman North, and there was freezing rain. It was cold. My ears were numb. I was like, I can't do this shit. I was like, I'm done for this.
Well,
For
if you
whatever
get
reason, I went to law school, which is like 3,000 times harder. But I was just like, nah, I can't. I can't do this cold weather. This is crazy. So no, ever since then, I was like, nah, I can't do this.
yeah, have you ever seen the game at Notre Dame?
Never seen a game in Notre Dame. I want to see touchdown Jesus and all the rest of that stuff, but it would have to be early in the year for me.
Yeah, so I've been twice. Both times OU played there. When OU first year, Bob's first year in '99, and then when Blake Bell beat them in, I think that was 2012 or
Yeah.
2013. So it's a great stadium. It's a great. I mean, actually, with the stadium, if they haven't replaced the century-old wooden bleachers by now, hopefully they have. But the campus is beautiful. But I mean, South Bend is kind of a dump. I mean, it's a beautiful campus in the middle of a it's sort of like a mini Cleveland. To give South Bend its proper description, it's like it's not very nice. So
So you're telling me the campus down there in Bloomington is way nicer than that one?
no, Notre Dame's campus is unreal,
Okay.
but South Bend as a city, I mean, it's like you get off campus and you're like, oof, oof, okay,
Chris
all
Mason,
right,
you're talking to somebody who played JUCO ball um, at Tonkawa, Oklahoma, when the mall was a Sonic there. Like, come on, man. You know what I'm saying? And there's anything. Walmart especially was 13 miles away in both directions. So I mean, they've built a lot on the highway now, so they're good. But still, like it was, yeah, we were out there just in the middle of nowhere, just hooping, right? So
yeah, yeah,
anything
well,
could be better than that.
yeah,
Simple
all right,
Simon's Pizza. If you know, you know. Simple Simon's. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna leave it there.
all right. Well, I'm just saying, when you see the campus and you're like, wow, this is absolutely, amazing, and then you like get off campus and you're like, oh, okay, we're in the middle of like a small city in like Indiana in the upper Midwest. It's like, all right, okay, you know, it's not Gary, Indiana, murder capital of the U.S., but it's not exactly scenic. So, but if the campus is beautiful.
Chris Mason, let's just do some bonus stuff real quick before we jump up off of here. Two things. First off, are there any surprise recruits that you are like, hey, in any class, right? Can we? I mean, hell, we've seen them go back and kind of look at a kid from what 26, get a kid from 20, like real late.
Yeah, I was a little surprised though you didn't. I kind of thought maybe we might see a safety show up from JUCO that OU signed to bring on campus. So that was a little bit of a surprise. The biggest recruiting surprise today, give everyone a little recruiting stuff, is that two names that I had sort of written off the recruiting class seem to be firmly back in play now. The first one, and I can't believe this name appears to be back in play for OU, and it's not good news for Texas if he visits OU. I thought his visit would get canceled. Is Brian Swanson, the offensive tackle from South Oak Cliff, seems to be he's gonna take his official visit, and there seems to be some quiet behind the scenes momentum between OU and him. I thought he was a UT lock. Maybe he still will be, but I think if you're UT, you don't really want him showing up on campus. You'd rather have locked him up as a verbal commitment, because right now Oklahoma's got 2 5-star. Benji, he's not. I maybe I won't. You were probably right. Maybe he is a silent, but if he's a silent, what is he doing? Reconfirming and reconnecting with the OU staff and coming for an official visit to OU. So, okay. So I have said for the last 4 or 5 weeks, whenever anybody's asked me about him, he's going to Texas. He's going to Texas. This is the first week I've heard something even vaguely off that route. So just keep an eye out for that story, K. Chris. If he was to choose OU in an upset, that would be back-to-back years Texas has missed out on the kind of elite. Benji, you may be losing Royal to LSU. I wouldn't be joking about that. With the way LSU, he's from Louisiana. Pulling Louisiana kids out is just.
Hey, Brian Kelly was one thing.
The creeper.
Hold on. Lane Kiffin King Jr. is a totally different thing. That's a beast you don't want to deal with right there, boy. Okay.
I wouldn't want to deal with Joey Freshwater when it comes to keeping kids home. So making sure they hold on to their commitments. So, but that's Brian Swanson's the first name. Maybe nothing will happen of it. Benji's right. I'm just saying. I've been fairly consistent saying he's going to UT. Everyone can back me up on that. This is the first time I heard anything that said maybe they should be worried. And Texas just got another 5-star offense O-line commit. That's their second one. And OU's got 2 5-star O-line commits. So, and Texas didn't get an elite tackle last year, really, and they didn't get Fasusi or anybody from that group. So I don't know. It's if I was a Texas fan, their recruiting's going well. They picked up a good tight end today. They're recruiting well, obviously, but I might be a little bit concerned that Flood isn't getting elite kids. At least not from the state of Texas. He's not. So OU, yeah, Benji, but Turntine. Okay, yeah, but he's not. He's just okay. Well, we'll see. Let's just see how he turns out. But he's obviously not in the same caliber that he was. He had a rep at one point, and then that rep disappeared. Maybe you guys can rebuild him. But anyway, so I'm not here to argue with Texas O-line recruiting that much, even though I'm kind of bagging on it. So anyway, at the same point, being two-faced there a little bit. So the other news, Chris, is that Miguel Chavis is like out in Utah working on a farm trying to get Yehula Wolfgram. I'm not sure if you saw that footage, but he's like feeding chickens and doing all this other stuff. So I think OU stands a good chance of getting the Utah kid. But out of nowhere, the Michigan kid, Miles Smith, who I think has potential to be like elite, who I didn't think was going to end up visiting OU, dropped Michigan State and rescheduled for an OU visit on May 29th. And last time he was in Norman, he nearly pulled the trigger and committed during Future Freaks weekend. So we may have Miguel Chavis might out of nowhere pull like another elite defensive end. So on Monday, everyone's, We'll talk Gabriel Osborne on Monday, guys. We're not going to talk about it tonight. But OU has secured visits from the two DBs they just offered, both visiting May 29th. Brandon Sherrard from the Houston area, who's a fantastic looking big corner. And then Bryce Williams, who's from Florida, who I think has some sort of safety corner flexibility. So, we'll see. But they're still pulling surprises for 2027. 2028, maybe the biggest news today is Jelani George, 6'5", 250-pound defensive end for 2028. Has OU in his final six. OU's been struggling to keep in that race, but they now are in his final six, and he's talking about visiting this summer, Chris, and he is a 5-star elite defensive end. He could be like number 2 or 3 players in the country overall. And his teammates, he's teammates with Michael Davis, the OU verbal cornerback, and also Yavid Zion, who I think OU will also land on their D-line class. And then the last tidbit for you guys, if you hadn't seen it from my Twitter action, is somebody just reclassified to 2027, and it's a defensive tackle from Rabun Gap, Georgia, where OU's recruiting some kids for 2028. He is Sagan Shaggy Alexander. He's a 6'4", 275-pound 3-tech, Chris, and his film is pretty incredible. I think OU may take an extra defensive tackle if they can get him, because his 3-tech, his film is just, it's like sick for what OU does. So there's been more 2027 noise than I'd anticipated. So OU has 21 commits, and now with the traffic we've just seen, they have 13 kids visiting between May 29th and June 12th that are, I don't know how you would turn down really any one of them.
When's the next big barbecue or the big event, recruiting event?
May 29th.
There you go, people.
And then June 12th. And in between, OU's doing their summer camp, so you're going to see 2028, 2029, and 2030 kids all over the place. OU probably will start making some 2030 offers. I imagine maybe you'll see OU offer Adrian Peterson Jr. if he's at camp and looks good. But if you want to, you're going to have to be at camp to get an offer for 2030. They're making more 2029 offers as well, Chris. Just offered a couple of kids at St. John Bosco. Stacy Ford was out on the West Coast making offers and getting OU involved with the next wave of West Coast elite players.
All right. We've been on here for damn near an hour. We've answered all these questions. I mean, well, not answered all these questions, but we have talked recruiting. We have talked about just kind of where we would like to go and see some games this year. I think that we've named some pretty good games, if I may say so myself. Jackson Normal, just a little, sprinkle on the top, but, you'd be in Hawaii too. So
you didn't choose a West Virginia game.
Well,
too cold, right? Too cold.
Way too cold.
Way too cold. Go to Morgantown. All right, gotcha.
If it's not cold, it's not a night game. It just kind of be like it's pointless because a random Saturday early in the year in Morgantown would just be like, what are we doing here? But that's just me. Regardless, though, people look definitely like this video, subscribe to all 3 channels you see. Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. Jason has been here in the chat, definitely chopping it up with you guys. Horns Down Podcast, and then you have Chris Mason with Students 360. Chris Mason, go ahead and plug the shows you guys have been doing.
Yeah, so if you guys, I think most of the folks in here, I've been getting comments from them on YouTube, so I appreciate that. But doing a daily recruiting update video for everyone. It's about 15. Trying to keep it to 15 minutes, bleeds over a little time if I get a little wordy, but basically I'm doing a video every day covering a topic in recruiting. I'm getting really good feedback from everybody, so please pass that video along to your OU fans who want to know something, want to follow something recruiting and want to just catch some small videos. Lucas Kelly just walked in.
Oh God.
Lucas, I just gave a Jelani George update. You just missed it. So keep an eye out. I'm doing Jelani George in a video next week. So you'll have an update next week on a daily update video. I've got a video of him coming next week. So yeah, by Patreon, simply go to patreon.com, Chris, to support the Patreon, to support all the videos I do, all the podcasts I do, to support Recruit Intel. If you like the Recruit Intel show, go to patreon.com. Simply search for Sooners 360, no space. You'll get a link. And from there you can subscribe. It's only $2 and it's a free trial. But I'm getting good subscriber numbers up on YouTube, so thanks everybody for that. It's really helping getting me closer to the big number of 500.
All right. Well, people, please definitely get over there and check out what Chris Mason and Jason have going damn near every day. We're trying to pump out all this content. We have all these different shows that we're definitely pumping out. So definitely be on the lookout for all that content. With that being said, we'll see you guys. If something big happens, then hey, we may jump on here. If not, then we'll see you guys on Monday at 8 p.m. Central. See you.